if you go to university, of course, it'll make your life a lot easier if you're on the left. If you're in any of the professions, your life will be a lot easier if you're on the left. If you're interested in media or you simply like to watch TV, your life will be a lot easier on your left. It does you harm. It's painful if you're not on the left and you watch TV and movies, because everything that you hold to be sacred is frequently urinated on. So conservatives understandably feel a sense of cultural oppression, and Rony Guldmann wrote a great book on this, on the conservative case for cultural oppression. He's a man of the left, but he uses left-wing analyses to show the legitimate reasons why conservatives feel oppressed in America. So it's not the explicit ideological appeal of the left, it's that the left dominates our institutions, it dominates how we are supposed to speak. You're going to be much more effective working in a corporation if you're on the left, because you have internalized that court way of being, where you're constantly measuring what you say to how it affects. You're going to do much more effectively in navigating life among America's major institutions if you take on this strategic, autonomous, buffered sense of self, where it doesn't matter if the neighbors have a gay marriage, or if the neighbor has trans children. It doesn't matter, because you have this buffered, strategic, autonomous sense of self where we can all just rationally make our choices, and you look down on ignorance and traditional superstitions and folkways. So given that the incentives are strongly aligned with every thinking person, facing many more incentives to be on the left than the right, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Now, there is the question of why this impacts women, at least very recently, more than men, this attraction to the left in the US. Any idea as to why that might be?
Yeah, because women have always been much more sensitive to social feedback. So women are far less likely to color outside the lines. So women have always done better than boys in school. But if you ask teachers and professors who their best students are, it's almost always guys, because women are always very careful to color inside the lines in school. They want to meet the approval of the teacher. They don't want to fall out of fashion with other people. And so women are particularly attuned to, the left runs all our institutions. It is socially unacceptable to say anything racist, sexist, transphobic, Islamophobic. They pick up these cues, and they have much more of a court morality. Women constantly moderate what they say by what could be the implications on other people. Men are much more likely to belch, to fart, and to say whatever it is that they're feeling. Men act much more like the lord of the manor. Women act much more like people at court.
Mhm. What do you suppose will happen over the next several years? Because there's going to be a lot of guys who are looking for romantic partnership, but a lot of gals who are not interested in anyone who doesn't share their politics are going to be dismissing these guys.
We have an extreme problem with loneliness for among the reasons that you just mentioned. But those women who turn up their noses at traditional guys, they're going to find it much more difficult to get married, to find a guy who will stand by them, and so they are not going to be able to reproduce. So I really like the framework of evolution. So if an adaptation is not adaptive, it's going to be outcompeted by adaptations that are adaptive. So generally speaking, the religious have more children, and those people who are adopting gay identities, trans identities, or turning up their noses at forming a marriage with a guy who's traditional in any way, those people are simply going to disappear from the gene pool.
True, but there are a lot of guys who are going to be wanting a relationship with a woman, and they're not going to be able to find one. And as history shows, when guys aren't able to find a romantic outlet, they channel their energy into some pretty destructive endeavors.
But I mean, on the other hand, this is true of a large number of guys in Japan, and they're not going around, shooting people. So I don't think it's necessarily the end of civilization. It's a reduction in civilization. It's a problem, but there are enough women who do want to be with a man. Definitely, we were having a decline in marriage, particularly since gay marriage makes marriage much less appealing to men. Men are not naturally attuned to marriage in the first place. Now that we've got gays celebrating marriage, it's probably even decreasing the interest of men in getting married. Also because divorce laws are so anti-male. So we've definitely got serious problems. We've got a steady decline in the marriage rate. We've got growing levels of hopelessness, and bachelorhood, and men who have a hard time finding a woman. So we have these big problems, but there is a community where guys can go to where they're much more likely to meet a trad wife, and that's a religious community.
Yeah, it depends upon the community. They don't find what they're looking for, which is just because of supply and demand. There's a great demand for these at least seemingly trad women, and the supply of them is not great enough to meet the demand. So what do you think will become of the Democratic Party going forward? We talked about the future of the American right and the GOP, but what do you think will become of the Democrats? What sort of situation do you think they're in?
Well, it looks like they have the whip hand here, but circumstances are constantly changing. So just like what you see with the Green Party in Germany, they suddenly are reducing many of their environmental commitments because they're so committed to Ukraine. In California, for example, we had to fire up some gas-powered power plants during a recent heat wave. So even though California has been run by Democrats, the state still works. So that which cannot continue will not continue. Eventually, the transmania is going to diminish. Those aspects of the Democratic agenda that are just cannot continue, such as defunding the police, will eventually reduce. Democrats don't like crime. Like liberals don't like high rates of murder and rape. So Democrats, by and large, don't like homelessness. So when certain liberal policies are proven to be failures, then liberals will adapt those policies.